And there is a slight surprise in the England team, in so much as we don't see. Oh, Dudley Tredger is there as the reserve. He, of course, was the gold medalist in the individual Épée event. So, slight surprise that he's not starting for them.
I think it is a surprise on paper, but I think in the previous round he didn't put in his best performance, and he had a fantastic day in the individual competition. And sometimes it's quite hard to pick yourself back up when you've had that huge adrenaline of winning a medal, and then the crash afterwards. It's quite hard to pick yourself back up. So maybe that's what's happened there.
We did see him in that the semi-final match against Singapore. He was very frustrated with himself, and so perhaps he's just taken to one side and said, "Look, have a break for this one."
That's right. And also maybe the secret weapon super sub.
Yeah, one substitution allowed in the match.
That's right, yeah, just one per match. You can change the team in between each round, so in the early rounds when teams were progressing through the table, they could change the teams in between matches. But now we're down to the final matches. This is the bronze medal match. There'll just be one sub allowed. So there's a cagey start, both fences feeling out each other. Or no hit because the fence was off the piste. He flaced, and then there was a parry post, and then the second action after he passed his opponent registered, but once he'd already passed and he was off the piste, he couldn't have that hit. So James Harris kind of putting a little bit more pressure on. Tom Hoffman being more defensive here, looking for the blade all the time. And the referee's decided non-combativity. So just over a minute gone with no hit. The referee decided they weren't trying hard enough to fight each other. He's going to move on to the next round. This rule was introduced really to stop épée fights becoming too static and fencers becoming too cautious. So we're now into the second match of 9. And this will be Matt Henderson taking on Chris Haye.
It must be difficult for the fighters as well. You can't just plan for one opponent because everyone fights everybody else, and I suppose as you swap over, as you change round, you'll be giving each other hints and tips about the best approaches to take. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, that's obviously also the job of the coach at the sideline, and the fencers will pick up some things that they want to pass on to their teammates during each fight. It's important not to give too much information because it can overcrowd the brain a bit with too much information, but it's good to go on the piece with an outlined game plan. But obviously you need to be able to adapt during the fight. Matt Henderson's being a little bit more mobile, kind of moving in and out of distance, trying to look for an opening on the distance. Has a little kind of feint towards the foot, see his opponent's reaction. Again, quite a cagey start. 30 seconds into the second fight. And there's a double. Yep. So in épée, if both fences hit at the same time, or within the 25th of a second, then a double hit is recorded. Each fencer gets a point. If the time lapse between the hits is longer, then whoever hits first gets a single light and gets a point for their team. Chris Haye a bit smaller than the average épée, so he tends to work a lot more off the blade, trying to get his opponent's point out of the way before he delivers his action. Matt Henderson has the height advantage. Again, pushing the England fencer, pushing the Scot to the back of the piste. Again, a double hit. There's an example there. Chris Haye took a parry, so he blocked his opponent's blade with a circular parry, trying to get ahead on time, but Matt Henderson replaced his point and they hit simultaneously.
Matt Henderson is very far over to the right-hand side of the piece there as well. He's also his preferred place to be.
Yeah, it's often because the left-handed fencer will actually often go to that side of the piece, so he's following. I think he's following the left-handed fencer more than him choosing that side. It just closes down the angle to the outside of the arm for the left-hander a little bit. And there's an example. Chris Haye took the parry and riposte a little bit quicker that time. Henderson went for the low-line attack to the leg and the foot area, and Chris saw that and blocked that out and riposted very fast to take the lead 3-2 for Scotland.
And you could hear the mighty roar from the mass ranks of the Scottish coaches and fighters down there as well as he did that.
Absolutely.
You can imagine as we get further into the fight, go through the rounds, the temperature is going to get ratcheted up as well as they bid for this bronze medal.
And that was a really nice hit to the foot from Chris. Just let Matt Henderson move into distance and then launched a very fast counter-attack to the foot. And now Henderson, I think, is going to be content to hold this score. He's a bit worried about giving away too much of a lead. Remember, this is the second fight, so the target is 10 hits in this fight. So when the time ran out in the first match, or rather the referee stopped the first match target was 5. The second match target is 10. So these guys, if one of the fencers had a bad fight, he could give a big deficit away. So Henderson's now content to hold just with that 2-hit deficit.
Yeah, we have to remember in Épée it's that cumulative total that goes up each time as well. As you were explaining a little earlier on, to me it's like a baton you're handing on the score.
Exactly, it is a sort of metaphorical baton. You're handing on a score instead of a baton. So score 4-3. Henderson pulled one back there as Chris Haye went more on the attack. 30 seconds left, and time often plays an important part in Épée matches. So this second fight, the original target was 10 hits, but time will run out before that's reached. So it already looks like it's going to be a cagey, relatively low-scoring match.
Are you a little surprised that not more of the England team did well in the individual events? Would you have expected them to go a little bit further than they did? Of course, Dudley Tredger winning gold, but the rest of them not really at the races.
Yeah, I would think, obviously, with the exception of Dudley, who put in an amazing performance and a very aggressive, typical Dudley Tredger performance, a do-or-die sort of style. I would say, you know, to be fair, the other guys would be a little bit disappointed with the final outcome in the individual, and that may give them some motivation to think they really have a point to prove here to try and pick up a medal in the team event. But yeah, certainly Chris Greensides, Matt Henderson, James Harris, all ranked in the British top 10, and they would have probably hoped to have gone further than they did. I think last 16 was the best result they got, other than Dudley.
And Greensides for England then, coming on to the piste. A fairly distinctive style, would that be the best way to put it?
Yeah, distinctive moustache to go with it. He's an RAF man, so he sports the handlebar moustache. Yeah, you wouldn't call him a conventional classic épéiste, but he's very, very difficult to fence. Very awkward style, left-hander, very rapid hand, very unusual timing. Originally started fencing in Plymouth with Andy Hill, who's a really great épée coach. He's produced a lot of good fencers, including Tia Sims-Lim, the very young fencer from Jamaica who won a silver in the women's individual épée.
And you can see Greensides there sort of weaving from side to side on the piste as well. It's just trying to throw his opponent off balance a touch. Yeah,
the piste isn't sloping to one side or the other. That's just his preferred style of footwork. I mean, his opponent Neill is much more conventional. He's a pommeling fencer, so that means he has a straight grip on his épée, and he holds the end of that grip to try and gain a little bit more distance on his opponent. Chris is using what we call a pistol grip, which just gives him a little bit tighter control of the point, a little bit more power as well. But Neill's going for the sort of timing and reach option over the power and the power riposte option that Chris has. And this is, sorry, go on.
I was just going to give a very quick update actually from the women's sabre competition. Currently looking at 15-10 to England after 3 periods across there on the women's sabre bronze medal match. You can of course catch up with that as well on the Commonwealth Fencing YouTube channel. But we are sticking with the men's Épée bronze medal for now, where it is 4-3 to Scotland.
Yeah, and the referee just called non-combativity there, a minute with no hits. He felt non-combativity. The general rule is a minute with no hit scored, and then non-combativity is called, which means they move on to the next round. So this is going to be a low-scoring, cagey affair. Chris looks content to hold the score. Neill Tannock is more of a tempo sort of counter-attacking fencer anyway, so he didn't want to chase after Chris. So Scotland happy with their 4-3 lead, and England happy not to bleed any hits in that fight.
Don't forget, of course, you can get in touch with us via Twitter if you want to do that. It's hashtag CFCLarge or at CFencing2014, particularly if you've got any questions about the technicalities of the sport and the intricacies, I suppose, of tactics as well. Particularly if you're new to the sport, if you've got any questions for John, we'd be more than happy to answer those. It's not necessarily the easiest sport in the world to pick up on first viewing, but I think if you've been with us for 2 or 3 days, you'll certainly have a good handle on it by now.
Absolutely, and obviously the 3 different disciplines all have slightly different rules and different tactics and techniques. So here we have got James Harris and Chris Haye. Lovely foot hit from Chris again. He did one earlier on in the only fight other than this where we've had a score. So he's scored so far all the hits for the team, for the Scottish team.
And the way that the lineup comes out as well, I mean, that's predetermined for them. They get to choose in which position they fight, but the lineups themselves and who they fight are predetermined to make it as random as possible.
That's correct. It's not about randomisation as such. So you have 3 fencers in each team, and the number order of each fencer is always the same, and then the team captain decides which fencer he wants to put in which number placing. And at the moment, it looks like Scotland have picked a very strong tactical order, and actually the order can have an enormous impact on the match. You can take a team that's just lost, switch their team order around, put them back on, and they would be capable of winning a match that they just lost if the team order is not selected in the right way. So it's a really big decision. And actually for England, probably a difficult one, as they left Dudley, Tredger on the bench. The individual gold medalists, probably a tough decision what order they were going to put out there. Scotland seem to have a really solid game plan here. The referee called halt because the fencers got too close to wield their weapons properly and to fence properly. So he called halt and put them back on guard. Again, non-combativity. So Scotland have built a 2-hit cushion, which doesn't sound a lot, but actually 4 fights down, and with the clear tactic of just maintaining the pressure on England and trying to force England on the attack and then picking them off. Seems that Scotland at the moment have the upper hand, and England are going to have to come up with something a little bit different from what they've offered so far. Yeah,
so even though the nominal target's 45, there are only 9 fights, 9 rounds in total, so there's a good chance in this particular match we're going to fall well short of the 45 points, I'd suggest.
Yeah, I'd fall short from putting my house on it, but I think it's pretty likely that this is not going to 45 unless we have a kind of miracle fight where there's a good 20 hits. The target for this fight nominally is 25, but really now it's down to a tactical time game. And this is round 5 of 9. So Chris Greensides is back on, and he's taking on Tom Hoffman. And interestingly, Chris, who has been the mainstay of the team so far in this match, Chris Haye, he's in the number 3, well, he's number 1 in the team list, but he's in the 3rd position, so he'll be not the last fencer on or the 2nd last, but the 3rd last fencer on for Scotland. So they're clearly trying to build a lead going into the last 2 fights. Now the problem for England is that Chris Greensides, who's on the piece at the moment, is not the kind of fencer who likes to chase a fight. He likes people to come onto him and feed off their mistakes on distance or timing. And this obviously suits Tom Hoffman a lot. He's quite happy to maintain this score. Chris feels like a little bit of pressure to try and score. 5-3 down, round number 5 of 9. So Scotland at the moment are tactically playing this really, really well. He's trying to bring Chris onto him so he can pick him off on the way in with the counter-attack.
And if the referee decides again that not enough is happening, that's very much going to play into Scotland's favour.
Absolutely, and it's exactly what Dave Baker, the Australian referee, has done. Very experienced international referee. Although looks very young, he's quite young, but he's already got a lot of World Cup experience. And he's decided again non-combativity. Scotland 5-3 up. What typically tends to happen in this situation is we get down to the last 1 or 2 fights, and the team that's behind feels they need to chase, and then we may see a flurry of hits, a flurry of activity, which could result in one of 2 things. Obviously, the attacking team pulling back, or the team that has the lead pulling out an enormous cushion if the chasing team isn't strong enough on the attack. So now we've got Henderson and Tannock. And I would be surprised if Neill Tannock went on the attack here. I think he's going to play the same game. As I said earlier, pommeling fencer, holding the end of that long straight grip to keep his opponent at bay and look for his opponent's mistake on the way in.
Matt Henderson himself, who looks like a sort of tall, rangy fighter as well, though. Good reach.
He's got very long reach, a good athlete, very strong, very fast. You can see he's quite bouncy, nice movement, and that's a lovely hit to foot. Scotland open up a 3-hit cushion, and as Henderson bounced into distance, Neill Tannock was ready for it. There's a question mark as to whether that hit the piste. Yeah, there's a technical problem there. So the aluminium piece that the guys are fencing on should conduct out any hits to the floor. But it seems to be a technical problem, which means that the piece did conduct a hit. The referee can't be sure if it's a foot hit or a hit on the piste. So my feeling is he's going to take that hit off and it's going to be 5-3. I'm not 100% sure. If the referee was certain it was a foot hit, he can leave it, but he's not certain, so he's taken that off it. The score remains at 5-3.
Yeah, and that's going to be a concern. They're obviously going to need to call a technician out or somebody to take a look at the piste if that's going to be causing a problem.
Yeah, there's basically an earth wire that runs from the scoring box to the piste and clips on the piste. A very simple system. And either that earth wire is faulty or has come unclipped. It's relatively basic part of the technology that's involved. So it shouldn't be too difficult to solve, hopefully.
And just to give you a quick update from what's happening in the women's Sabre bronze medal match, rather. Getting myself confused there. The bronze medal match, and it is currently 25 points to 18 in favour of England.
So the technician's just out there now, fixing that problem. With a 5-3 lead for Scotland at the moment. England so far haven't been able to come up with the right answer to the Scottish tactics. Scotland built a couple of hits cushion, and they've made it pretty clear their intention is to run this down to the last fight, try and hand the lead over to their last guy, and force England on the offensive. So this is Neill Tannock for Scotland, Matt Henderson for England, and really important moments now in this match for the bronze medal.
And we're just hearing that Scotland have announced they are going to have a substitution. It looks like Tom Hoffman is putting his tracksuit back on, which means that it will be George Liston who will be coming in to take his place in that final fight. And George Liston, a very experienced fighter as well.
That's true, and that's an interesting move. I think they've obviously had this plan from the beginning. Tom's done his job of holding the score in both his fights. Didn't need to score because his opponent didn't score, and he kept the lead for his team. And George is one of the cagiest fighters out there. He's been there and done pretty much all of it. And he's seen all this before, and he'll have his game plan ready for his last fight, presumably against Matt Henderson.
We've spoken quite a lot this week about how important that experience is, and we saw that last night in the women's individual épée with Georgina Usher, and we were talking to her earlier on about her role and how she was able to win that gold, and it was experience. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was not getting too excited about it. She was not getting too down about it. She was just there and she thought, this is my game plan, and this is how I'm going to execute. Absolutely.
I mean, Georgina has been around for many years and has seen everything at world level. She's been ranked in the world top 20. She's a fantastic fencer. And that wealth of experience, even though she's now not training as a full-time athlete, that kind of bank of experience she has will stand her in good stead still. And she just went out there with a really good competition mindset, just focusing on delivering her own actions that she wanted to do and forcing mistakes from her opponent. And obviously she was fencing a very young fencer in the final, a really talented young fencer who I think will go on to great things, Tia Sims-Lim, who won the silver medal. And at the end of the day, that experience won her the gold medal. You know, Georgina's still a great athlete and really difficult fencer to compete with, but at the end of the day, it was, I think, her mental game that won her the title.
So we're just about to get underway with the 7th bout of this particular match, and it's going to be Chris Greensides against Chris Haye.
Yeah, this is I guess if it was a cage fight, my money would be on Greensides. Chris Haye of the Scottish guys has scored, I think, all 5 hits. 4 of 5 maybe.
2 southpaws as well facing each other, 2 lefties.
Yeah, 2 left-handers. Quite a few left-handers in this team, in both teams. It's a slight statistical advantage being left-handed. Obviously the right-hander, the angles change when you fence a left-hander, particularly in épée actually the angles change because there's a lot of hits around the arm and the wrist. So the left-hander will obviously spend more time fencing a right-hander and therefore gain more experience against them. So sometimes when you do see 2 lefties fencing it, they can struggle for the first part of the fight to find their distance and timing. And actually Chris Haye is trying to push Greensides back, although he's not making an attempt at the moment to score. Chris takes the blade out of the way, tries to go on the offensive. This is match 7 of 9, remember. And they're pretty close again to non-combativity. That's power riposte for Chris Haye. Stepped in, drew the Greensides counter-attack, and then did a lovely circular parry and riposte to give Scotland a 3-hit cushion. That could be a crucial hit now. And that was just before non-combativity would have been called.
So they can call that, even though there is contact with blades. It's just the fact there's no hit after a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the rules have changed on a regular basis about this. The FIE, the International Federation, is trying to find the best way to apply this non-combativity. I quite like it as it is now. I think they did have a rule where if there was no blade contact for 15 seconds, then that was non-combativity. That was, I think, much too harsh, particularly in épée where fencers are working to try and find the right distance and time to hit each other. So I think it's about right as it is now. We're looking at the same situation now. Chris Haye pushing. This time, instead of taking the parry, which I think Chris Greensides anticipated, he just stepped in and hit as Chris Greensides flashed. So a good change of tactic from Chris Haye. And Scotland open up a 4-hit cushion.
There is a big bank of Scottish supporters, obviously, just right behind Chris Haye. That's the rumbling noise you can hear. But that's a strike straight back from Greensides.
Yeah, Chris went for the low line again. Chris was ready for that. Greensides was ready for that. Step back, counter-attack to wrist. It's really the first mistake Chris Haye has made. He's put an impeccable performance in for the team so far. Obviously had a very solid game plan and has stuck to it with great discipline. And now he's pushing Greensides back again, trying to force the counter-attack and take the parry, take the blade. And there it is. He forced the counter-attack. Get a cart parry riposte this time. Good variation on his blade actions. And now with 57 seconds in round 7 left, it's a 4-hit lead for Scotland. And you can see the Scottish team and supporters getting very excited. They're starting to sense the medal could be theirs. That time Chris Greensides pulled out a variation, did a duck into his opponent's attack. Duck stop hit. Reduces the gap to 3 hits. So as we build up towards the end of the match, as we said earlier, it looks like there's going to be a flurry of hits towards the end. Well, it's another one back for Greensides. I mean, my feeling is after the deficit was reduced to 3, maybe Scotland and Chris Haye could have just played for time there, kept that 3-hit cushion.
I suppose that would be the problem as well, though, is that they start backing off, and that allows England to come on to them a little bit.
That is a danger, but they've been very successful with that so far in the match. And you know, Chris Haye has scored a lot of actions in his back 2 meters of the piece. Oh, it's a beautiful foot hit, though. Beautiful foot hit. Fantastic timing distance. And now that 3-hit cushion is back. Chris Greensides is definitely stronger in defence than attack, and Chris Haye has settled for the 3-hit cushion. Job well done for him in this match. I think if Scotland go on to win this medal, he should be getting a big pat on the back. Great performance.
I'm going to put you on the spot, John.
Yeah.
Which way do you think this is going to go then? There's obviously 2 rounds still to go. It's a 3-point gap. Scotland in control, but do you think England can get back into it?
I think it'll be interesting to see what happens, but my feeling is Scotland have played this really, really well. I think they've made a very clever substitution. I think Scotland are going to take it.
It does look like Dudley Tredger as well is getting himself stripped. So I wonder if they're going to try and use Dudley's much more aggressive, faster pace approach to épée and trying to get those hits back as soon as he can.
Yeah, I think it's a good substitution by England. I think that's what will give them a chance of the comeback. If anyone's going to come back from a deficit, it's someone with Dudley's style. He just basically goes forward and pushes hard on his attack all the time. And either it works or it doesn't work. He doesn't really change tactics. So I think if they are going to get back into this match, they need to go on the attack, and Dudley's the man to do that for them. In the meantime, Scotland have pulled another hit out courtesy of Neill Tannock. And it's 10-6. 4-hit cushion. That's a double. That will suit Scotland perfectly, maintaining the 4-hit gap. And it's going to be very hard, I think, to get one light against Neill. He's got really nice timing in defence. If his opponent takes the attack, he's very good at picking him off on the way in and picking up either a double or a single. So unless he's under pressure to attack, I think it's going to be difficult for England to score a lot off him.
Yeah, it is Tannock on the right-hand side attacking James Harris. And that is the Tredger substitution confirmed. We just hear he's going to be coming in for.
It's exactly an example of what I said. Neill's just doing some feints in and then stepping back, feinting in, trying to draw out the Harris attack and then counter-attacking into it to get either a double or he hopes a single light hitting to the outside of the left-hander's arm. So pressuring but not really committing too deeply from Tannock, and that's what he's trying to do. He's going to try to put a little bit of pressure on, draw that attack and then counter-attack into it. Oh, beautiful feint high and then hit to the leg. 5-hit cushion now with just 1 round left after this, and it's starting to look like a mountain for England to climb.
With every passing hit, I think George Liston is probably feeling a little bit more comfortable about his role as the anchor of the team now he's been substituted in. It'll be interesting to see how Tredger will approach it. Well, we know how Dudley is going to approach this, don't we?
There's one way when Dudley's on the piece, there's only one way. And actually, we will not see a greater clash of styles than Dudley Tredger and George Liston, so it should be an interesting last fight. Still 1.5 minutes left here. 5-hit cushion. Tannock just taking the piece from his opponent. It's the first time he's really committed there into an attack, and he just closed the distance too much before he went in for the lunge. And a very good counter-attack from James Harris. Picked him off on the way in to narrow the gap to 4. I think just a couple of times, once in the last fight, once in this fight, that's what he wants to do. Do the feint, draw the attack out from Harris and then counter into it. Once or twice in this fight and the previous fight, Scotland fencers just started to chase and try and score hits rather than force their opponents to make mistakes. And again, exactly the same timing. England now in a little bit of trouble. Going to be a case of patience for Scotland and wait for the mistakes, and England have to go on the offensive pretty soon.
Yeah, Tannock still pressing forward though, obviously not entirely satisfying with that leader. Is that just his preferred approach, do you think?
I think he's liking pressing his opponent with feints, but not really committing onto the attack and then trying to draw his opponent into counter-attacking. And as his opponent does that, stepping pad out of distance and picking him up on the arm. A couple of times he's actually really committed to the first attack. It hasn't actually worked. And I think his first strategy was the better one, and he's generally stuck with that one. 6-hit cushion. 1 round to go after this. And I think really this fight's just going to play its way out now. There'll be a lead for Scotland going into the last match. Significant lead, and it's really now going to be down to what can Tredger do with his attacking style against George Liston's experience and strong defence.
Yeah, and just looking back again to that individual Épée gold, I mean, Tredger managed to finish that match off in what felt like record time because his style can be so aggressive, and so for him 6 points in 3 minutes is nothing.
It is nothing, but also scoring 6 without reply is the tricky one. So George will be looking just to get that clock running down and keep matching his opponent, scoring doubles off him, prevent him from getting single lights. George Liston won't need to pick up any single lights at all as long as he can keep doubling and let the clock run down.
Just a quick update from the women's Sabre bronze medal match as well. It's Wales 40 points to England's 38. They're into the last period now. 45 points, of course, the target. And it is Catherine Kemp who was the individual Sabre medalist for Wales, who is going to try and take them home to the bronze medal. But we are now back, of course, with Scotland versus England in the men's Épée bronze medal, and it is 21 points to 14 with just 20 seconds left of the 8th period.
Yeah, Neill Tannock's done a fantastic job for his team here, doubling when the opportunity was there, picking up some single lights. He's played it strategically very well, not overcommitting but pushing his opponent into taking action rather than just being passive himself. He's been pushing his opponent, making him take action and then picking him up on timing. Very nice hit back from Harris. Narrows the gap to 6. 11 seconds left. I think Neill Tannock could be well satisfied with his job. Now it's down to the experience of George Liston versus the gold medalist Dudley Tredger, the attacking fencer. And this is going to be a fascinating last fight, I think.
Yeah, George looked very happy then when he came onto the piste, very pleased with what his teammate has done for him.
Absolutely, I mean, getting handed a 6-point lead going into the last fight in an épée match is a pretty commanding position. And I think if it was any other fencer than Dudley on the piece, you'd say it was game over, but he has done some strange things in the past, Dudley. You know, it's possible he could do that again. If you had to put money on it, you would still say Scotland are very, very much in the driving seat.
I just wonder, what is Dudley now thinking about? You know, he's benched for this match. He was frustrated with himself in the previous semi-final. It's win or bust really for him, isn't it?
It is. I mean, he's a very experienced performer, Dudley. He's been around the block, and obviously he's got the individual goals. So in terms of, you know, him wanting to come away with something from this championships, he's probably already achieved more than he came in here with the expectation of doing. So he'll just be going on there now trying to fight for his teammates, really. And I think that does give an extra little bit of pressure. But his style is to be offensive, be aggressive. This situation suits his style if he can find his timing and distance. George is clearly going to look to pick up doubles, and there is one. Really big, strong fencer, George Liston. Has a height advantage. And that's a lovely cart parry post. He's just going to let Dudley come onto him and look to pick up enough hits to maintain the lead. He doesn't need to attack. Tredger needs to attack because of that 7-hit cushion. And there you go, another double. And Scotland can do this all day long. All the way to 45 if there's time.
Yeah, with every engagement, more time is running down off the clock as well. And another hit for George Liston of Scotland.
Absolutely. And this is looking pretty bad for England now. Scotland have played this match tactically really beautifully. Obviously from the beginning they were looking for a conservative scoreline for the first few fights, looking to put England on the attack. They managed to build a small lead, and that exerted pressure on England to keep going forward and keep trying to pick up hits. And Chris Haye and Neill Tannock in particular, I think, have done a fantastic job. Tom Hoffman did really well, just holding the score, forcing non-combativity.
That's a yellow card by the looks of things for Dudley Tredger.
It's a slightly harsh yellow card. His socks were just showing a little gap between his socks and his breeches. He asked the fencer to pull them up. He didn't quite pull them up enough, and then Dave Baker handed out a yellow.
Slightly harsh?
I would say very harsh. I would say at this stage of the competition, this stage of the medal match, just say pull your socks up again, mate, rather than dish out a yellow. It's not distracted George Liston though. He's just keeping the ball rolling, picking up doubles at worst, and already picked up two singles, and he's just looking very solid. His experience is paying off. He's got very strong blade actions, George. He likes to take the blade, parry posts and beats on the blade, and that makes life hard for the attack on the way in. Oh, and then surprise lunge into Dudley's attack there. Just over 2 minutes left. There's been an enormous flurry of hits as we expected. Tredger had to go on the attack to pull back the deficit, and George Liston just looking to double out the match, score doubles until the time or score runs out.
Well, you've got to think that George Liston's going to be feeling pretty comfortable at this stage with less than 2 minutes left on the clock.
Yep, obviously he can't fall asleep. He has to keep on his toes, keep working, making sure he's picking up the blade on the way in or picking up the timing as his opponent comes forward, and keep getting that light on, which he has done. 1 minute 48 left. I mean, with Dudley's style, obviously the score racks up much faster than the time ticks down. So actually, I may have to give you my house because they may reach 45.
I could do with a little place in Cornwall. That'd be lovely.
It is very little. I'm warning you. So the gap is 8. 1 minute 35-ish left. George, lovely timed counter-attack as Dudley came steaming forward again. Scotland can almost feel that bronze medal in their hands now. Another double. Dudley just cannot find the way through that defence. George not getting rattled by Dudley Tredger's attack. A less experienced fencer might have been a bit more stressed, a bit more tense, and got put under a bit more pressure by the constant forward action that Dudley uses. But now with a 9-hit cushion and 1 minute 20 left, it's looking good for Scotland.
And Scotland have led from the very start of this particular match.
That's right, it was a non-combativity first round, so 0-0 after the first round. And then Haye came on and scored to give Scotland the lead. And then again, a few more rounds of non-combativity really helped the Scotland cause. You can hear the Scottish supporters starting to get excited now. Just over a minute left, 9-hit cushion.
Brings it down to 8, but George himself only needs another 8 to make it to the 45. With just over a minute to go.
I think George has got enough in the tank to keep doing that, exactly that. Keep defending, force his opponent all the way down the piece, and when he's at the back of the piece, pick up the double. And even if Dudley scores 3 or 4 singles, the chances are that George is going to pick up more doubles than that and close out the match. It's a situation now where neither fencer can really change tactic. Dudley Tredger needs to keep attacking, he needs to pull the score back. He can't do anything other than be offensive, and George Liston doesn't need to do anything other than be defensive, so it may look like a little bit of a one-dimensional fight from the outside, but neither fencer really has much choice in the matter.
Just a brief update from the bronze medal match across on the other piece, which we have been live streaming for you as well, and it's finished 45 points to 41 in favour of Wales, so they pick up the bronze medal in the women's Sabre team event.
Really good counter-attack over the top to the arm for George Liston there to open the gap to 9 hits. 30 seconds left, Tredger has almost given up, you can see that now. Right at the back of the piece, Liston, 1 foot on the piece, still picks up a light, but referee says floor. A 10-hit cushion now, 20 seconds left. Scotland have this in the bag. Great performance, great tactical performance, really solid, well thought out game plan, which they stuck to with great discipline all the way through. And England really didn't have an answer strategically to Scotland's plan.
Dudley Tredger still pressing forward then. But rather forlorn hope, one thinks, with just 7 seconds left on the clock, just a matter of time. And I suspect there's going to be a fair old eruption of noise from the Scotland side of the arena here in Largs.
I think you're right, 2 seconds left. 7-hit cushion. It is game over for the England team, and Scotland are going to pick up the team bronze in men's épée. Fantastic performance. I think I might just hold on to my house. There's 3 seconds left. Scotland need 2 more to reach 45.
I'll tell you what though,
Scotland take the medal.
and that's it, 44 points to 36. George Liston absolutely delighted with that.
That was a brilliant performance from Scotland. As we said earlier on in the match, they've obviously come in with a solid game plan to put in a conservative early part of the match.
Dudley Tredger, we saw walking in there, absolutely furious with himself, but I mean, I don't think there's much he could have done up against a man of George Liston's experience. He knew exactly what he had to do in that situation.
That's right. Dudley had too much to do. I don't think he can blame himself for that. I think really the middle part of the match when England were a couple or 3 hits down, they needed to be a little bit more, have a little bit more nous tactically. They were clearly playing into Scotland's hands in the tactical stakes. I mean, if you look at the team on paper, if you just look at pure rankings on paper, England have a stronger team, man for man, but team fencing is not like that. Team fencing is all about the strategy of the team and executing that strategy effectively and with discipline, and that's exactly what Scotland did. Had a game plan, stuck to it, and did not get shaken, never had a wobble in that match at all. Really impressive performance.
Terrific to see the replay of George Liston celebrating there. And don't forget, we're going to have the gold medal matches for you this evening. That's Scotland versus Singapore in the women's sabre, and then Singapore versus Wales in the men's épée. We're going to take a short break now, but do rejoin us if you can for the gold medal matches.